Hey, Theater Philadelphia fam. We are back with a second season of our Living Legends ethnographic series. And I am overjoyed to be here with one of my Philly faves, Miss Nancy Marie, a well-known playwright, poet, actor, and especially, most recently, a Pulitzer nominee, right? To talk to us about her journey through Philly theater and beyond, because she's internationally known, okay? Out here doing great things and big things, and we're so grateful to have her in our Philly community. Nancy, welcome.
Thank you, Sabriya. It's great to be here.
I'm just excited to have this conversation with you. I've had conversations throughout the years with you of your journey, with lending advice and also showing up and supporting and things like that. So I want to start off by asking, right, what is your Philly theater journey? Like, where did it start and where's it brought you?
Wow. So I came to Philadelphia in 1985, fresh out of grad school. I graduated from USC, got married 2 months before, no, was it 2 months? Actually, a month before I graduated.
Okay.
I had ended up getting married to a man from Philadelphia, and that's how I ended up here. Mm-hmm. For a while, I wasn't too involved in the theater scene because there was just so much going on in my personal life that I had made the decision that I have to put everything creative down, and that's what I did. Time progressed, and I literally felt like I was dying inside. And, I got the revelation, with all the gifts that God had put in me, that it was an ultimate slap in God's face for me not to be doing anything and for using my trauma as an excuse not to. So I started slowly but surely getting back into the arts. I started with, writing poetry, things of that nature. And then in my school, I taught for 16 years at it was first called Grace Temple Christian Academy, and then midway through, the name was changed to Greater Hope Christian Academy. Some of my students, bragging rights, Joanna McClinton was a student of mine, Julian Settle, Sharina Morrow, the list goes on and on. But what I would do was incorporate, theater and the arts into all of my lesson plans. And we will also do little skits and things. And there was one skit in particular, it was for an event called Thank God for Grace Day. And every class had to do something, perform. So we put together this skit about a little boy who was being molested by his uncle. I had no idea that this was actually happening to one of the young men in my class. So, that opened the door to, get him the help and the resources that he needed because, dealing with that subject matter. And we did it in a way that was gentle, but yet, opening the door for those types of conversations to happen. And like I said, he came to me, Sister Gill, I'm going through this. So that play went on to be produced as a full length. So I took the skit and actually made it a full length play.
Come on.
And it was produced at my former church, and I got in hella trouble.
I'm just saying, you said, listen.
I got in so much trouble. Opening night, I got pulled to the side. I was told that I had offended pastors, I had offended this, I had did that. And mind you, I'm I think 7 months pregnant at the time with my 5th child. So all I could do was go home, ball up on my couch, and cry and pray and cry because I knew that God had gave me that play.
Yes.
So by the time I finally got myself together and I got back up, went back to church, first young man I run into pulls me to the side. He says, "Thank you for writing that play. Because of what I saw, I was able to go to my brother's grave and forgive him."
See?
Then another lady pulled me to the side and was just, giving me words of encouragement, saying this is the type of thing that is needed. So then I knew, I was like, okay, God, I'm not crazy, and thank you for that confirmation. And I started, growing and developing and doing other things. I never did anything that controversial again in the church, but I found a way to bring up topics in a more gentle and, lack of a better word, kinder way, if you will, but still delivering a message. So, that went on, and then I started connecting with, other artists in the community outside of the church. And I think the first person that I actually worked with here, now let me get my timeline right.
Yes.
It might have been Cash.
Cash
Goins, yeah. Somehow we connected, and I became a script supervisor and production assistant on one of his films.
Okay.
And after that, I was in his play 5 to 10.
Yeah.
Which I think, oh my goodness, that was just one of the most phenomenal roles that I played. But okay, wait a minute, let me back up, because I missed something. I know, can you edit this? But
listen.
But no, because it's all Cash related. So
come on, Cash. Shout out to Cash. Hold it down.
It's all Cash related. He was the one that was responsible for getting me booked in Sherelle Bay Clark's play Asylum, in which I played Masani. Now, Asylum was the true life story of Prosi Kakosa. So you know the story, right? Yeah. So I got to play Masani, her mom, opposite Tiffany Barrett, who played the role of Prosi, and Brenny Yancey Telu, who was Leah, her lover. And oh baby. So we took that to the Urban Theater Festival in New York, and it won the Audience Choice Award, and it was the runner-up for Best Play. And so a couple of years later, it was produced again at Stagecrafters. And so that time, Cash actually directed that. So it just took it to
another level.
Whole nother level. Now, funny story about that production. One day, during an actual performance, my husband, right? So it was a scene where Prosi's locked in the closet, right?
Yeah.
And I'm asking him to give me the keys so I can let her out. This is supposedly right before she's supposed to be killed, because there was a whole honor killing that was planned. So my line was, Bartholomew, give me the keys, right? So this Negro Diamonds takes the keys, he throws them, and they go sailing off the stage.
No.
So, I do this thing, so I'm like, Bartholomew, the keys, they went down the vent. Give me the spare. So I'm thinking, okay, we cool. He gonna, he gonna improvise, pull out a spare key. No. Excuse me?
The scene gotta go. Continue. What did you say?
Bartholomew, give me the spare. No, you go get a hammer. Negro, what are you doing?
What hammer?
So, but wait a minute. Here's the crazy thing. The ancestors of God always have my back. So here's the crazy thing. Before that performance, I was rummaging in the drawers in the green room trying to find something, and I saw a hammer. Right? So that came back to my memory. So I was like, fine, I'll get a hammer. I run off stage. Cash is going, just go. And I just ignored him. I opened the drawer. I got the hammer. He's standing like this. I go back. crossed the stage. I do like this to him as if I wanted to hit him in the head with the hammer. Went across the stage, tapped on the wall, brought Tiffany out. When the scene was over and we left the stage, Cash was like, "Your name is Bad Bitch from now on."
That part. That, my people, is how you, as an actor, stay in the moment and play on stage.
Ooh.
Because ain't no way. I'd be like, excuse me?
Like, get a hammer.
Did you say? I'd be like, bro. Okay.
So, that when Cash was asking me, why don't you act more? And I was like, I don't know, And he said, oh, I got something for you. And that's when 5 to 10 came about.
Okay.
And that was just amazing, that experience. And then the second, so it was produced like 3 times in Philadelphia. So the second production, I actually ran sound because he switched up some characters. He played the lead Wolf in this particular production, and Tiffany Bacon played the role that I played. So she was the second Danita, and I went to sound, which was cool because if you saw the play, like the sound and all the music that he chose, it was like another character. So essential. Doing all that, and then I just began to do other things, getting calls from people who saw 5 to 10, and like, would you come to audition? Would you come to audition? So that's how I got involved with Stagecrafters. I did Trouble in Mind there, and which was awesome because that was my second Alice Childress play. The first one was The Wedding Band, which I actually understudied at the Public Theater in New York with Ruby Dee, Clarice Taylor.
Come on.
And they set it up so that on closing night, I saw Ruby and Polly Holiday, and they were all in the corner, like, what's going on? Because I would go every night, I would just go just to be in the midst. And they came and go put a costume on. And we're going to give you a couple of lines and get you on stage. So they were responsible for me doing my off-Broadway debut as an actress at the age of 11, which was awesome. So that play, The Wedding Band, was by Alice Childress. So that was a full circle moment for me, getting to play Millie in Trouble in Mind. Then I came back to Stagecrafters to do Detroit 67. Oh my God, Cash played my brother, Rod played Sly, Tiffany Barrett and Effie Cameron. That was the ultimate production. And then my third play at Stagecrafters, unfortunately, got canceled 2 weeks before opening due to COVID, but that was Skeleton Crew.
I remember, yes.
Yeah.
That was a lot of us were excited about.
Yeah, and when things calmed down and they brought the production back, I wasn't comfortable yet, because I don't drive, so I'd have to go from Overbrook to, Germantown on public transportation. I wasn't. I don't know yet, not yet. So they made a replacement, and I did support the production, and it was excellent. So from there, I just been rolling and doing things, and finally decided to really put myself back into the playwriting mode.
Come on.
Because there are just so many stories that aren't being told and aren't being shared, and I said, I need to do this. I need to do this. And it was funny. It was actually during the pandemic that I had found out that Una Molzak had passed. Now, I met Sister Una when I was, I think, maybe 9 years old. My sister had gotten a job at her bookstore, and she lived above the bookstore. So one day she took me, to the bookstore to meet her, and we had a couple of outings. One time we went to Central Park to hang out, and I always, whenever I went back to Harlem, because I had moved to California for a little bit, and then I came back to New York. So whenever I got a chance to go to Harlem, I would go, peek my head into Liberation Bookstore, say hello and everything.
Yeah.
So during the pandemic, I had found out that she had passed away, and I was like, wow. It had been a couple of years, and I was like, why did nobody, why wasn't this broadcast more widely? And then more importantly, why is nobody telling her story? And I just heard this voice, we were waiting for you. I was like,
come on.
Oh. I'm sitting there like, what? Okay. So
that's exactly how it be too. You'd be like, okay, all right.
So I'm thinking, how do I tell this story?
Yeah.
And so I started researching, and then I found out about the COINTELPRO operation that had been launched against the black bookstores across the country in 1968, I'm sorry, it started. Hakim's bookstore here was targeted, Drum and Spear. And so I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then the more I studied, the more information started coming, and it just started kind of getting out of control, because there was the infamous school strike of 1968, where the kids were out of school for over a month or whatever. And so I was trying to incorporate all this information into this one play, and it's like, boo-boo, you can't do that. And it was so hard because okay, the question is, does it move the storyline along? And if that was yes, then okay, is it necessary?
Yeah.
And if I couldn't honestly say yes, I had to cut it. And it was like, cutting your...
For a playwright, it's like, what?
Oh!
What do you mean? What do you mean?
No!
I can't add after scene. What do you mean?
So it took me almost 3 years to finish that play. And it's never taken me that long to write a play in my life. So, I finally got it finished. Ontaria, Kim Wilson, called me and said I would like to do a stage reading of it for my master's thesis at Temple.
Yeah.
So the first reading was October 1st, 2023 at Temple University with a beautiful group of Temple students. My God. And that was an awesome experience. And then I was blessed to have it picked up by Theater in the X for the OG reading series, which honors playwrights over the age of 50. We don't be getting that kind of love like that. So
one of my favorite series.
Yes. So we did it there, and I had been, submitting to different places, and right before the reading with Theater in the X, I got the notification from She New York Arts that the bookstore had been accepted into their festival and that it would premiere off-Broadway at the Connolly Theater.
Oh my God.
Baby! So here's another full circle moment, because of course, back when I was 11, I made my off-Broadway debut as an actress in The Wedding Band at the Public Theater.
Yeah.
The Connolly is a stone throw away from the Public, and here I am returning to off-Broadway as a playwright. I'm just like, you couldn't write a better script than this. It was so awesome.
Divine.
Yes, absolutely divine. So I had been toying around with the idea of Pulitzers. I said, this script is Pulitzer worthy, Okay, so what do you have to do? So I started, looking up information on the Pulitzer. I was like, okay, I meet all the criteria. So I started the application, and then imposter syndrome started rearing her head.
Did she come?
She came for me. She came for me 3 times. I started and stopped that application 3 times because I was like, no, I'm not worthy. No, I'm going to be rejected. No, I'm not going to make a fool of myself. No, whatever. And finally, I was like, what do you have to lose?
That part.
So I went ahead, and before she could, open her mouth again, I hit that submit button. And then, a couple of, maybe a month later, no, it wasn't even a full month, like maybe 3 weeks. I got the notification that the application had been approved and accepted, and I was like, okay, well, here we go.
Let's do it.
So the finalists and the winner will be announced in May. So, in the meantime, I'm keeping busy.
Speaking it into existence.
Yes, speak it.
But
even if it doesn't materialize in that way, I know it's going to position the play in such a way where it can be seen, in more places, and hopefully somebody from Philadelphia will step up and produce it.
And if
they don't, I'm going to do it myself.
Period.
I'm going to do it myself.
Period.
Because,
sometimes that's what we have to do.
Yeah, we have to do it. We have to. So I did submit to a couple of local theaters, and a couple have already said no, but the other couple haven't said anything. So I'm keeping hope alive that, somebody will say yes.
Yeah, because it's a story that needs to be heard and seen.
Yes.
And also the journey of it. You know what I'm saying? Like the journey of it. I think when I hear playwrights that I know in Philly, like yourself, like Erlina, like all the different playwrights, I'm like, should be produced even more, because their stories are the years put in, the investigation, the work put into it. But the work that is not just centered around, this is a story I want to tell from my own life, but a story that is centered to how I can lift my community. How can we take my community to another level?
Right.
Of being seen, of having our stories told, right? Real griots, walking around here. I'm in the presence of a real life griot, y'all.
Yes. Philly is so saturated with the talent here is just, it's
outrageous.
Off the wall. And, to think that so much of it is being suppressed. Come on. Because suppression is a part of the game.
Yeah.
There are the chosen few that get to do everything. And then the remainder who get to eat crumbs from the table of whatever, because it ain't joy. You know what I mean? Listen.
And we make our own. That was going to be my next question, is like the challenges of being a Philly theater artist and community member that arise. I know there are plenty of joys that we find in being a part of the Philadelphia theater community. And also our different sectors of the Philadelphia theater community, because different sectors of it internally, there's like different sectors and groups. But some of the challenges that you've seen or seen or been overcome, or like are still working on.
So for me, I think the biggest thing, I'm a type of person that if I can support you, I'm going to support you.
Yeah.
And when I support you, I'm going to give it 110%. And so I've always been, putting out, going here, going there. If I could help somebody, with their project or whatever, I do that. And in return, and I'm not saying everybody that I've helped or everybody that I've supported is guilty of this, because there are numerous people who are true, like me and you. You came on, did my music video, and I was like, yo.
I said, gosh, you helped me with my pieces.
Yes. But I've gotten burnt.
Yeah.
I've had statements made, to my face that, the reason why I do what I do is to help people like you. Baby, I've been in this business for 50 years.
Let's compare CVs. Come on.
Yeah. So that part is rough, because I'm the type of person that if I'm not careful, I will shut down. And if I shut down, it's hard for me to open back up and trust. Another thing is not being a Philly native.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be challenging. Coming from New York, even though I only lived in New York until I was, the first time I moved, I was 12. Yeah, I was 12 years old when I moved to California. But then I came back and, finished junior high and high school. And then I was back out to California to get my master's, after I did my 4 years at LIU, went back to Cali, and then ended up here. So not being a native, sometimes that's a problem. Sometimes your university affiliations can become problematic. Listen, it's just like, I have to make a decision within myself. Is I don't have to, number one, respond negatively to the way that people perceive me or receive me.
Yeah.
And I have a choice to either remain true to myself or become like them.
That part.
Because I could be very nasty.
Listen, we all got in us.
Right. Don't poke the bear too much. But, I'm trying to remain in that place that's ultimately going to reap the rewards that I'm seeking.
Come on.
And the rewards are not for me. If I'm able to get my plays produced, that means I'm able to employ people. If I'm able to do something that inspires somebody else to sit down, I want to write my story, then, that's fruit. That's fruit. It's not always about the gain that you receive, but what, the seeds that you plant that start blossoming all over, if I can use my light to spark a flame in somebody else and then their light starts shining, just imagine what the world would be like if everybody was moving on that trajectory.
Ooh, and I was talking to a friend recently, we're both artists, and we met this past summer at a residency, and we were talking about, but not everyone is invested in community. Not everyone knows, everyone wants community, but not everyone wants the work of community. Because the work of community takes, okay, we're showing up to shows, but are you connecting with people? Are you making sure that you shouting out that youngster that's in the corner? Are you picking up the kids, like you saw, are you picking up the kids and taking them to see theater, right? Are you saying to yourself, okay, let me take this time, let me connect with other, community members, right? To see how we can solve this issue, right? I'm going to see you. I'm going to support you, right? And if I can't show up for the show, I'm gonna make sure you get a message. I'm gonna make sure that you know that I see you, right? But also, how do I show up for you in spaces and defend you? I think that's something that's hard for our community because we see these things. We see the hard conversations. We see the backstabbing. We see the the limitations put on Black, Brown, Indigenous, Asian, artists all the time. And sometimes we can't even defend each other because we're afraid of the backlash of showing up for community in that way and saying, no, you're not going to talk about this person this way, or no. And we also buy into institutions. We say, okay, but in order to do this, I need to pivot myself this way to get into this institution, or for this institution to take me seriously. Right. And the reality is, how do you also show proof that you don't have to sell yourself for the institution, right? You can also come into institutions and say, no, there are things I want to bring in here that are necessities for how we can move forward, how we build community. But that conversation, it's rough, and no one's ready for the rough conversations or the face-to-face conversations, right? And so I hear that, and to hear it from veterans like yourself who have been in the game for so long, to say still, I'm sitting here like, please, just say it to my face. Show up. You know what I'm saying? If you say you're going to do something, you're going to collaborate. Do what you hold to yourself to your word. Right. And that, I think, is something that generationally we're trying to figure out. How do we heal that? Because it's in the room. Yes. But we don't touch it. We're like, okay, let me not.
We're so used to the comfortability of the dog and pony show, the forward-facing, outer appearance. Come on. That, we have become so neglectful of the necessary work. And if we don't tackle strengthening and rebuilding a foundation that supports community, we're just going to continue to see more of the same. You know, we look healthy, we look vibrant, you know, but inside we're cracked, we're crumbling, you know, we're screaming out for help, but the mute button has been pressed and nobody's listening.
And the burnout is happening.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a good kind of conversation that happens a lot of times, is the many artists that we've lost to Philly, talented artists.
Yeah.
Because they reached their quota of dealing with the industry or existing or trying to get their art out there and not seeing anyone reach their hand out. Which saddens me, because it's like, no, there should be, especially in art, we should be able to reach out and say, okay, I see you. How can I get you help in this way?
Right.
So what is something that you think you envision for the future of Philly theater to make that situation change, evolve?
That's a hard question.
It is. Take your time.
I don't even know if I have an answer. I mean, of course it has to start within.
Yeah.
You know, I know what I can do to change myself and do my part. But, you know, that the bigger picture, I really don't know, because like you said, we've been dealing with this for a long time, and it's almost to the point was, you know, I know they say speak those things that are not as though they were, but is speaking enough?
Yeah.
You know, what else can we do to support the words that we speak, to make a change? And so that's the best answer I can give. I'm really not sure.
And
it's sad.
But that part, even the saying that I'm not sure, I don't know, right, is a sign of a true wise woman, to be like, I don't know, right? I don't get it right now. I know what I can do, and I know what I'm willing to do, right? And I'll bring it to the table. But I think that's something that a lot of, you know, my generation is still struggling with and trying to figure out, how do we say I don't know and not feel like we're counting ourselves out, you know? But also, how do we feel about, what do we want it to look the same way that the industry looks now? Do we want it to look that way when we get to being in our over 50s? Do we want to be sitting there like, oh my God, it's the same thing over again? What is happening? You know? I think that's something that, like, really, that's the scariest part to me. It's like, I never want to wake up in 30 or so years and be like, so what happened? But like you talk about the suppression, a lot of times I think our generation right now is dealing with these underlying suppressions of changing the industry and wanting the industry to be more grassroots and more collective in a way. And so we're scared of what happens if it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, similar to our government current. You know? That we're like, okay, you got some people, what's happening? You know? So you talk about these stories that need to be told. What's like some stories that you are looking forward to telling next?
So I'm currently working on a piece. Initially, I was going to name it after the city where it's based, but then I decided to move a different way, because it's not so much the story of Sandy Ground, which is, you know, the first black settlement in the United States, which was in Staten Island, New York. But more so the generational trauma of 3 generations of women in this family, and the impact that the secrets and the lies have upon the 3rd generation. So I changed the title to Like the Oyster.
Ooh.
Because there are a lot of references to the oyster, because the oystermen came up from Maryland to sandy ground, and the farmers, and they just created that wonderful place for the Negro to settle. And but there are traumatic stories that go along, so it's an all-female cast.
I love that.
7 women. And I'm working on that now. It also incorporates the 3 places where I've lived in my lifetime. New York, Philadelphia, of course. One of the characters relocated to Philadelphia, and the other sister relocated to Altadena, which was like the first major black community in California. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Sidney Poitier was from Altadena, or lived there at some point. And of course, we know what has recently happened to Altadena. So it brings those 3 worlds together, back on Staten Island, to tell the story of this 3 generations of women and the trauma that they've endured.
I want it now. I'm like, and send it to me now. That sounds such a wonderful. I love when playwriting takes ethnography in itself already, but when playwriting is timely, is guided, is like divinely guided, and arrives at a time when you're like, oh, we need to hear that now. What do you mean? Right?
Yeah.
It's land back now. It's indigenous rights now. It's black and brown communities needing to have ownership of their spaces now. And those stories.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that one. I'm like, listen. I'm like, I need it now. Because if I could, I would just be like, I feel like the playwrights in Philly, we gather, but we don't gather as we should, to like share and to do these things of like, this is what the work is. It's like, hear this story, right? Gather around to hear this story that I've come to tell, right? I'm always like, we should just have a whole like, your poetry slams. It should be a playwright slam, like a story slam that just plays.
Because I tell you, that whole OG reading series, I only missed one because I was in Atlanta when Ed Shockley did his.
Oh, yes.
But I was there for the other. I actually read in 2 of them and witnessed the other 2. Well, I was watching my own. But that was just one of the most awesome times. The gathering of the playwrights, supporting each other, and listening to the work, and even having the audience inspired. Like, these men and women are over 50 years old and they're doing the darn thing. You know what I'm saying?
Still doing the
because that play you read.
Oh, I love. That was such a fun play.
Oh my God, I was screaming.
I'm trying to remember what the title was, but we'll plug it in. But
We'll Write for Food.
We'll Write for Food. That one, it was an insanely written. Such an insanely written piece, but such a piece of the artist, of the muse, I must say. And I read as one of the muses, so I was like, it was wild. But what it does, it solidifies for generations like that coming after y'all to not summarize our art by a deadline. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we tend to summarize our art by a deadline. We tend to be like, if I'm not this by this age, I'm never gonna make it. I'm never gonna do anything, And vice versa, if you're someone like me or Mariah Gant, who's like running companies and doing things in the 29 and under range, you get this feeling of, have I reached my mark? Have I reached my mountain? And it's like, no. What are you talking about? You know? This is not the end. It will be endings and beginnings all over and over and over again.
Yep.
To which I love, this is why I love the Living Legends series, is to like talk and be like, oh, so you had time, you was like, break, not doing that. Like, break, I'm not writing that.
Yeah.
Listen. And then bouncing back and then coming, you know what I'm saying, to like be a Pulitzer nominee. Even the conversation of, and if you're comfortable talking more about this imposter syndrome that I think we talk about,
Right.
but we don't talk about how fierce that thing is.
It's real. It is real. You know, I sit back and I look at the things that I have done, and I'm like, okay, you have no right to succumb to her. And yet here she come and wreak havoc every time, you know, every time.
Every time. You be like, oh my God.
Yep.
What's happening?
Yeah, it's you know, but we don't come out of generations of trauma, you know, in a New York minute. You know, that's not real. And we have to be willing to do the work, to stand 10 toes down and tell her, look, not today. You know, try again tomorrow maybe, but no, not today. Not today.
She will try it.
And she will try it. She will. You know, because that's the other thing. We think, we make this bold proclamation and think, okay, that's it. You know, we've won. Da-da-da-da. And then crap comes back stronger, harder. And like, well, what? But I spoke. It's not about that happen. No. Cycles. It will come back. It will come back. But the question is, how are you going to respond when it does?
Yeah. You just get better. You get better at your response.
Right. Start
vibrating. At all.
Right.
Listen,
that part. Just, whatever. Okay.
Well, Nancy, I am blessed eternally by your presence in my life, but also your presence in the Philly theater community.
Thank you.
And your story. And just so excited to see this continuum of storytelling, of divine droppings in your head that's all like, we're coming to life, that will foster even more community, right? Thank you for coming to talk with Living Legends.
Oh, thank you for having me.